How are you doing?
Hey, Harvey. That is Harvey. Hi, Harvey.
Good
Hey,
morning.
there, yay,
There you
Hello.
are.
yay.
You look like a statue in that first video, first
Well,
picture.
we don't want that one. No statues around here, we gotta get going.
So, how are you? I haven't talked to you in a while. How
I
you
know
doing?
we've been doing well, we had these Jewish high holidays, and that's been
Yes,
Right.
I
very
know.
big. And I participate, and I actually belong to a synagogue in Houston as well as one in Detroit because my youngest son and his kids and so on, they're
Ah,
participating, so I get to see them on Zoom. And sometimes I can do something on Zoom to broadcast over there. And then
Oh,
in the local
cool.
synagogue for Veterans Day, they want me to sing in Hebrew the what they call the Haftorah. It's a reading from the prophets sung or chanted by ancient biblical notes called
Whoa.
Contemplation.
Okay.
So, so I'm doing that for Veterans Sabbath, shall we say? So, and then of course I'm involved with the Holocaust Museum, and I'm giving lectures there every week. And it's my practice. It's interfering with my life here.
I just got a notice from my high school. I'm in the alumni association, and it's once or twice a year they put out a booklet to kind of update everybody on what they've been doing, what you've all been doing. And I use the term we baby boomers are reinventing retirement. Then I went on to explain what I've been doing with my time. And I think that's true of a lot of us, not just quote unquote baby boomers, but
Sure.
we are redefining what retirement means.
This in this picture that you have, the tapestry behind is a long story, but it originally belonged to the wife of Moshe Dayan.
Oh my
oh,
gosh.
Yes,
Wow. What a
yes,
provenance.
yeah. It was. It's a long story, but that's kind of a special piece. Yeah,
I would
Oh,
think
just
so.
kind of, sort of.
yeah, kind of sort of.
Thank you for sharing that with us. Wow.
And it's actually, if you look at it with a different perspective, it's really an artistic rendition of a candelabra. So you
Oh,
can almost see the candles coming up.
oh, yes. Now that you point that out, when you turn your head sideways,
You can see my
yeah, right.
you can see it's kind of a candelabra coming up.
Oh, that's neat.
They're
It's kind of hard to tell. How big is it, RV?
Oh, it's pretty big. Yeah, it fills a wall.
Oh,
Yeah,
it
Yeah,
does. Okay.
I
I
figured,
I
yeah.
had that sense, Doctor. Yes.
yeah.
Well, good morning, Laura. Rabbi Laura.
She's there somewhere. There she is.
Good morning. I am
Good
Oh,
here.
morning.
morning.
Good
Good
morning.
Nice to
morning.
see you all.
You still have your signature hat. I love it.
Thanks. Oh,
I
it's the
was just
same one in
thinking
the
that,
picture.
yes, it is. I was thinking the same thing. I like your hat.
Before I
Thanks.
make the introductions, I start usually with how much time do you both have? Because I don't want to abuse it. Um, any limits, Laura?
I have an hour.
Okay, okay, so we'll take the hour. Sometimes we go over, but I think with our group this will be fine. I know you haven't met each other, so I'd like to introduce all of you. Laura's a rabbi out of Seattle, and Harvey in Houston here. And I think you know Jeff, Laura, don't you, or not? Maybe not.
I
Jeff,
don't.
I
Jeff
don't
I don't.
believe we've
Renner
met.
Jeff Renner is going to be the moderator. Harvey Rosenstock, obviously, and Laura Kaplan, and Jan Masterson, who is going to be writing the program
Yay,
for
Jen.
the conference. So she's making the introduction of the two of you at the conference in writing, and Jeff will be doing it verbally. So it's I'm going to ultimately turn this over to them, and only at the very end will I need to clean up a few housekeeping issues. But this is mainly for them to talk to you and meet with you, and for you to meet with each other. And obviously, it's going to be a 45-minute talk that you're both giving. So if this is going to be up to the two of you to work this out, we have pretty much decided on one thing at the very least, and that is I've been talking to Father Lawrence Freeman, who we're getting as the opening doing the Christian mysticism. I don't know if you've heard of him, but powerful guy. He's taught thousands, and he recommended, and I agree with him because I've taught a lot of people that for people in an audience that have never done this before, 10 minutes is probably a better total silence. And I say 10 minutes of pure silence, no talking, is probably the limit for newbies. So having said that, I'll turn it over to Jeff and Jan.
Oh, well, thank you. Well, again, good to meet you both. I believe one question that we should address right at the beginning is there's the level of address in a meeting like this, and then there's the level of address when we'd actually introduce you. What title, what name do you prefer to be addressed by when we would introduce you to an audience?
Well, most of my life I've been known as, hey, you.
You do better than I do then.
You know what? We get a lot of people saying, "You talking to me?"
Yeah.
That's what I'm mostly used to. But so, Laura, I'm just nice to meet you. Chag Sameach, and good to meet you and get acquainted with you. I had a question though. When Bob, when you mentioned 45 minutes, so Laura and I will divide 45 minutes. Is that what you mean?
Yes.
All right. So
However
if
you
divide
decide.
or section the way you want to do it. But
All right,
like that 45 minutes,
in my mind, I was going to
be
give
10 minutes of silence during that period.
10 minutes. Okay, so maybe I can do 15 minutes of slides just to talk a little bit what Kaballah is. And then instead of a 15-minute silence, we'll do 10 minutes of focusing on a Shaviti kind of mysticism meditation. Because in the slides, I'll show what a Shaviti is and show the Hebrew and have people look at that and then close their eyes, and we'll move into a 10-minute silence instead of 15 or 20 minutes. Is that? And then, Laura, you're going to be giving slides or talk at the other half of that time?
I don't know at all yet what the content of the presentation will be. But I think that you and I can have a separate meeting if you have time for that sometime in the next few weeks or months
Sure,
and work
sure.
that out. And
Sure.
if you do a Shviti, I will do something else that starts either with a concept or a visualization. But I'm really glad to see just in the little bit that you've said that we have the same approach, which is even when there's silence, a Kabbalistic meditation usually starts with a content for you to focus on.
Yes, and this would be actually from Psalm 16, the 8th verse, Shaviti Adonai, right? And the Negdi Tamid. And so that means I place God before me, Tamid, always, all the time.
Sounds
So
like a plan that you two put your heads together and decide how you're going to use your
Okay.
45 minutes.
45 minutes. Okay.
This
As
conference,
long as it
sorry
sounds.
to interrupt already. I'm already interrupting. In this conference, what we're trying to get across is the unity between the different faiths in that fact that in that silence, there's no dogma. And that they're different in terms of the intro and the close. But the actual silence itself is where we come together.
Mm-hmm.
But I think we've got a couple of goals for this, and that is just to get a sense, and Jen especially wants this, is to get a sense of what she should include in the written biographies, if you will, of what will be printed to give people an orientation. I like to get a sense of how you'd like to be introduced, because I think we've all been in situations where there have been some introductions that are great, and there are others that you think, well, who's that they're introducing here? And you've had that experience, Rabbi Laura. I want to make sure I don't do that you don't say, well, that guy didn't listen to a thing that we told him.
So let me ask you a question. First,
Sure.
I like when my name is initially said, that all three names are said, Laura Duhan Kaplan. I
Okay.
like to be addressed as Rabbi Laura, even though some
Okay.
of my female colleagues feel that that is like a diminutive name if you don't use your last name, but that's what I like. And in terms of the introduction, how long will it be, and what do you want to establish when you introduce us? Do you want to establish that we have a lot of degrees, that we've practiced for a long time, what we do, that we're fun? Let us know, and also how long.
Probably fairly brief, because the introduction, and I'm going to sort of, at least in my orientation here, Bob is up in my upper left-hand corner. since that will be essentially, I believe, a part of the 45 minutes, is that correct, Bob? I want to keep it
Yes.
relatively
Yeah.
brief, but my goal is to, number one, give them a sense of what your background is, but also some human elements. Like, for example, my old journalism background doesn't totally extinguish itself, and I understand that Rabbi Laura, that you also perform in a band, I think. And so it would be good to get some information about that. And you're up in Vancouver, are you not?
Yes.
Okay, I'm just to the south of you in Seattle, actually just east of Seattle. So we're neighbors of sorts. So just get some details of what you like to hear, given the fact that it's about a minute, and probably also, a degree of your professional background to ground this, but then also just some fun elements in that. And Rabbi Harvey, I would ask the same of you. I've also done some reading on your background, and I must say that I found very impressive the fact that you have maintained a long-term friendship that was featured in People magazine.
Yes.
And that's a very, very impressive story. So I would say, number one, I want it to be comfortable. I want it to sort of fit within that mold. So I would ask both of you, and whoever would like to go first, what do you think is key to putting in?
Well, I want to defer to Laura.
So I guess you're on the spot, or Laura, then.
I think that the instruction that you just gave us, about 1 minute, so about 100 words, grounded in some education and professional practice, and then say some interesting things, particularly ones that inform what we're doing at the conference.
Right.
I think we could take that as a homework assignment, and you could tell us how soon you want it.
Okay.
Can I jump in here for a second,
Please.
Jeff?
Sure.
The profile, which is what this is, it's not a bio. Okay. Your professional bio, for example, is on the website. And Jeff will give those, if you want to call them credentials, to introduce you on the stage. My goal with the profile is to tell people who you are as an individual. Yes, of course, you're a rabbi and you have certain obligations, responsibility, whatever. But what you just mentioned about you like to be called Rabbi Laura. My mind jumped to why you like to be called that. However, that's not me, that's you. Why do you like to be called Rabbi Laura? Those are the kind of things that I want to include in the profile, so that hopefully the people will read this before you do your presentation, so that, oh gosh, she's kind of interesting. I really want to listen to what she has to say, because my goal with these profiles is to make you relatable, not some figure standing up there on the stage that people, I want them to be able to, or to feel comfortable that once you finish speaking, when they see you around the venue and, the hotel and whatnot, that they feel free to come up and talk with you and say, hey, Rabbi Laura, I appreciate it, or I didn't understand, or whatever it might be. That's my goal with the profiles, to make you real people, not just some name on a program. So I hope that helps you. And I think Jeff he's shaking, nodding his head, because he agrees with that's the approach we're both taking.
Right.
Yes, your credentials are important, but you know what? Anybody can look that up on the internet. We want to tell them who you are. Back to you, Jeff. I just wanted to insert that to kind of clarify what you and I are trying to do here.
Yeah, no, I think that's spot on. So, a key element or two of your educational background, I know that you're the director of the interreligious studies, I think, at the Vancouver School of Theology. And one question that I think goes to the background of that is, what oriented you, or what influenced you to enter that field in the first place and to become a rabbi?
Are you wanting us to answer these questions now, or these
I've got more time, but I know Jan wants to write her profile. So
Well,
give us a sense, but
Got it.
if your time
No.
permits, I'd love to get back in connection a month or so down the road, and then, we can refine a little bit. But I know Jan would particularly like to get some details now.
The reason being, let me explain a little bit. your initial, what I think of as your gut reaction, that's what I'm looking for. I don't want you to have to think about, because the 3 or 4 questions that I have, I really don't want you to think about them too much, because then it comes out as canned. When I put you, and I know I'm doing this, when I put you on the spot right now, I know I'm going to get your real honest comments or whatever, that you want people to know about. I promise I'll be nice, I promise. But that's my goal in what I'm doing today.
Or you might get something that I just blurt out and realize afterwards, I don't want anybody to hear that.
Well, I've done a lot of if it'll put your mind at ease, Laura.
Right.
I've done a lot of profiles over the years, and I've kind of learned, it's almost a sixth sense, what is includable and what isn't. Conversations like we're having right now, things get said sometimes that, oh my gosh, you wouldn't want that, like anything like that in print. I get it. I have a sixth sense about that. So
let me assure you, she was the editor of my book, and she made me look good. So I can assure you, she's really a pro.
Yes. Well, she did succeed at that, but she probably had very good material to work with.
Yeah,
Anyway,
he still hasn't learned how to use commas, but yeah, other than
I'll be happy to answer the 3 or so questions you asked me. I just want to make sure that Harvey also gets a chance to.
Oh yeah, no. I'm going to pick on both of you.
No, I'm
No,
very
I'm gonna ask.
bashful. You have to understand, I am very
Oh yeah,
bashful person. Yes.
yeah. Harvey's yes, he's definitely shy. Yes, definitely. No, I'm asking the same 5 questions of everyone. Okay. I have them written down so I don't forget them. While we're talking about that, and this will help Jeff a little bit too, I think. One of the things that I want to put over, in your profile, or at the beginning of your profile, off the top of your head, here again, we're going with gut feeling here, gut reaction. What would be 3, no more than 4 words that would define or explain, or as I call it, it's a teaser about what you're going to talk about? It's basically, nobody does print ads anymore, but it's basically a headline to catch people's attention. I want them to look at your profile and say, oh, how's she going to talk about that? Or something like that. So I asked both of you that question to be thinking about it, and I'll get back to it afterwards. So it gives you that. I will give you a few minutes to think about.
Great.
Back to you, Jeff.
No, so I would just say, tell me a little bit, Rabbi Laura, what attracted you to becoming a rabbi, and then in terms of what you do with interfaith instruction.
Becoming a rabbi, I got ordained when I was 45. I had a very strong Jewish education. My parents gave my brother and me no choice in that, but that was not a bad thing. We actually loved having Judaism as our natural habitat, and the ways that we were taught, where questioning was encouraged and things were fun and it was appropriate for kids. And I could sit in synagogue, and we started learning Hebrew when we were maybe 5. So I could sit in synagogue and listen to the liturgy and say, oh, what does this mean? I'm supposed to be praying for this or that to happen. But nobody told me that you couldn't question. So it was a very open and engaging and, physically and emotionally and intellectually immersive Jewish education. So that is a gift that my parents gave to me.
Your parents lived their faith, correct?
Oh, absolutely. In very different ways, each of them. But yes.
That's what I heard you say. Your parents, you grew up in a family where your parents, because they were the head of the family, live their faith day in and day out.
Absolutely. And again, in many different ways, in the justice way, the ritual way, the family values way. Absolutely.
I just wanted to make sure that I wasn't putting words in your mouth.
No, not at all. I mean, it wasn't, a fairy tale kind of thing like you would get in some evangelizing testimony book. But for sure. And my passion when I was a teenager intellectually was philosophy. And by my mid-30s, I actually had a job as a philosophy professor. And I was living in North Carolina. with my husband, Charles. I think we may have even had young children at the time, and we got involved with Kaballah. Best translation of that might be a fellowship group.
Mhm.
And when people found out I had a strong childhood upbringing in all of the Jewish arts, they called on me to do a lot of leadership
Mhm.
around ritual and children's education. And their perception of me, of course, didn't match my own inner perception. I thought, oh my God, I don't know anything.
Right.
And they thought, oh, she knows everything. So I thought it would be a good idea to seek some more religious education.
Mhm.
At the same time, I started having different kinds of spiritual experiences. Like, for example, at one stage, I'd get home from work, I'd pick up the kids from school, we'd have our afternoon and evening together, and then I would put them to bed, and I would go sit in a dark room for like 30 minutes, quietly doing nothing. And I suppose you could call it a kind of centering prayer meditation, but that's
Mhm.
not how I thought of it at the time.
Right.
I thought of it as, woo, I'm decompressing. And one evening I was doing that, and I had this very strong sensation that the way I describe it in words is someone was knocking on a door in my mind.
Mhm.
And I just sat with it. And then it happened again the next night. And it happened again the next night. And it happened like 30 nights in a row. So I said something to my husband and I said, look, Charles, I'm sitting there in the dark every night and I'm having this feeling. And, someone's knocking on this door in my mind and I'm afraid to open it. And we were living in the Bible Belt at the time. And I said, what if I open the door and it's Jesus? Right. And then I said, I mean, if it's Jesus, but how am I going to explain this to my parents? Right? And he's a child psychologist, 6 months retired now, but he's a child psychologist. And he said, well, I don't think you should worry because people often receive religious experience in the symbols, right, that have shaped their mind in things that are familiar to them. Not always, but often. So I said, okay. And the next night when the feeling came, I know how to do visualization. I also did like a 600-hour yoga teacher training program and
Mm.
taught for about 10 years. So using visualization, I opened it and I was flooded with a feeling that was so much like the ineffable one, the source of all creation, the energy of the universe, very, very much like the Yud Hey Vav Hey experience that was described to me as a child, but I always thought was an abstraction. And after that, I started having conversations with God. Like when people died in a hurricane, we were in a very severe climate zone, storms all year round. And I got answers that, rationally, they weren't good answers, but
Mhm.
emotionally and spiritually, they were answers and they seemed real. And so, to get back to the point, with the combination of the desire for more knowledge, the urgency of that, and the um, growing a sense of immediate spirituality and divine presence in the world. Of course, I sought rabbinic education, and the right fit was Aleph Alliance for Jewish Renewal, because there's a lot of focus on spirituality and spiritual practice and Kabbalah and mysticism in that program.
Mhm.
Also, my father wanted me to become a rabbi, but I didn't pay any attention to that when I was a teen.
I bet Papa was proud though.
Very, very.
So
Are you
that
in
was all
our
taking place when you were in North Carolina then, Rabbi?
Yes. And we've been in Canada 20 years.
Okay.
What you're describing, this isolative moment in silence and dark. That's very much described Talmudically under a hitbodedut,
Yes.
kind of reflection in quiet space, and there are many examples of that in Musar and some of the Musar masters, actually. And so you remind me of many of those examples. Yes.
Yes, it's funny though, because when I think of hitbodedut, I think of like the Baal Shem Tov living off in his hermitage, right, in the woods, and this is just a harried mother looking for some quiet.
I got you. I'm
Oh,
with you.
hey,
got
I
you.
remember those days, Rabbi Laura. Boy, do I ever. I was listening and I was relating to that even if it's only 15 minutes at the end of the day, it's the only quiet alone time young moms have.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
so believe me, I understand and relate.
Okay.
One
Nice.
other question, Rabbi Laura, along with what you were just saying. By any chance, are you an only daughter?
Yes. So I was raised with one brother, and I'm the older and he's the younger, but now we're the same age.
Yes. Well, the reason I asked that question is because of the push for, or your dad's strong success suggestion that he wanted you to become a rabbi. I just
Mhm.
wondered if it had anything to do with proud papas and daughters kind of thing.
I
Okay.
think so.
Yeah, that's kind of what I got that feeling. But again, I don't want to put anything out there that isn't accurate. So that's why I asked the question. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other points that, and I know Jan will have some to bring up, and then I do have one other question, but any other points that you think would be really useful in us understanding what led you on this path and what you hope a interfaith group might take away from this?
Oh, interfaith. That's right. Well, there's so many ways to find commonalities in interfaith, and there's also ways to bond when you are learning with some delight or discomfort about your differences. But I think the focus here is on what we might call interspirituality. Let's lay aside the labels. But I think the focus here is on a sense of common humanity. What is it that all human beings, regardless of their cultural faith expression, what is it that we all have in common? What is it that stirs inside us that makes us want to reach to the divine? What is it that can give us an experience that isn't focused on or so clearly mediated through the symbols, right, of our cultural traditions? And I think when people start to discover that, um, I'm talking about other people, but I should talk about myself, honestly. And let me backtrack on the
Sure.
professorial stuff and make it more personal. Is that okay?
Yes,
Oh, definitely.
definitely.
So my current job is at the Vancouver School of Theology, and this is my 11th year there. And I came to the Vancouver School of Theology a couple years after I started working full-time as the rabbi of a congregation here in Vancouver. And I felt like something was lacking in my pastoral care presence. Let's just put it that way. I felt that something was lacking and I couldn't be present in the way I wanted to be present. And I talked with my fellow rabbis in town and they said, don't worry about it. The most important thing is to show up. People just need your presence and you're doing it and it's fine. And I thought, I don't think they even know what I'm talking about. And I had a spiritual director at the time, and she suggested that I study spiritual direction. And my denomination had a program, but I thought, it's going to be the same teachers I already studied with, and the students are going to be some of the same people I went to seminary with. I just need something different. And my spiritual director was a a part-time faculty member at the Christian seminary,
Mhm.
Ecumenical Protestant Seminary, Vancouver School of Theology. And she said, well, this is one opportunity. So I went to, and I thought, well, this could be really interesting. I need to make some new friends. I need some friends who are outside the Jewish community because it's so immersive to work in Jewish communal service and have people
Mhm.
all up in your lives all of the time. I'm sure you know that, Harvey, very well. And, and besides, it will be expansive. And so it was a 2-year program. Um, in spiritual direction. It included like 100 hours of supervised
Mhm.
one-on-one hands-on with people, also study of Christian mystics, study of different forms of Christian prayer, study of psychological ideas, immersion in like a Rogerian model of listening as part of spiritual direction. And I found that what I had to do was everything that we learned, I kind of translated it by analogy
Mhm.
to Jewish concepts that I was familiar with, right? Because after my rabbinic education, I had a lot of Jewish concepts for meditation and mysticism and God. And then to speak with my classmates, I would translate into the concepts that I was familiar with, and then I would find new dimensions of those ideas, and I would find new dimensions of my own practice because I had new language and imagery for it. And then to speak with my classmates, I would translate back into Christian language. And so I feel like I grew so much. And then in those pastoral care moments, I was able to have, and I know it sounds like buzzwords when I say it, it doesn't capture the experience, but I was able to have those times when I was able, in a sense, in my own psyche and my own energy to invoke the presence of the divine. And
Mhm.
I would be grounded in that in a way that other people would feel it. And right, the pastoral moment would be us and the Holy One of Blessing. And even
Mhm.
if the people weren't spiritual in that way, they felt that sense of heightened presence where they were being held.
Mhm.
And, again, after that, I had so many other experiences, small spiritual experiences. One very um, powerful one of maybe 5-hour experience of being in cosmic consciousness.
Mhm.
And I don't think that I could, well, I mean, who knows that, right? The ways of God can be very unpredictable. But I feel that the expansiveness of learning other spiritual vocabularies just make all of that possible.
Mhm. A question I would ask, and I should say that I've had the blessing of working in interfaith. There was a program started in the Seattle area called Challenge. Challenge was the initial one, and it was inaugurated by Rabbi Raphael Levine during the time that Kennedy was running for president. And he basically went to the Catholic Archdiocese and said, "We have a sense of what prejudice means. And I think it would be good to get together for dialogue." And so he joined with a young Irish priest named Father William Tracy, who I had a chance to later work with. And we started up that program, and we've done a number of programs with people from what's called the Interfaith Amigos, if you've heard of that, Rabbi Ted Falcon and Olivier Ben Chaim, if you know him in Seattle. And so we've talked a fair amount, done a number of programs, but I know one conversation that I had with Olivier in particular most recently is that in the Christian tradition, the contemplative tradition is sort of a minority subgroup. And there are a lot of people within the Christian household that aren't very comfortable with that, but we find that very filling of our spirituality and relationship with God. Is that similar to your experience, and I would address this to both of you, within Judaism of Kabbalah?
You go first, Harvey.
Well, what you're saying is when you reach out across boundaries,
Mm-hmm.
you find this common denominator, this commonality, which enriches the spirit of both
Really?
sides. You know, last Sunday, for example, for my first time in my life, I was singing in a church with a Christian choir because a previous leader of our high holiday services was a Black gentleman, belonged to, I think, First Baptist Church, and he passed away from multiple myeloma, and he loved our services, and he loved a particular song called Lador Vador, from generation to generation, and we used to sing that for these high holidays with his direction. So he wanted, in his dying days, could our choir go to his church and sing with his choir that particular song? And
Wow.
every one of us showed up for that. And it was such a wonderful experience singing there with the choir, with the procession and all the things that happen at the church. So it was just a wonderful experience, but it's the same idea of reaching across these artificial boundaries and finding the commonality.
Mm-hmm.
It's a wonderful idea. Really, it is.
It's not new, though, is it?
No,
Maybe
No.
we're hearing more about it now, but it's not new.
it
I don't
goes
think it's new in any of the faith traditions. We're just
It
talking
goes
about
back
it
to the
more.
old saying. You find that in Matthew. You find that in the Torah.
Mhm.
"V'ahavta l'reacha kamocha," you should
Right.
love your neighbor as yourself. It's also in the Talmud. Yes.
Right.
The
And
more I
which
study,
tune?
What's that?
Which tune of Lador Vador did he love?
When we start singing,
That's
it
exactly
would
what I
be
want.
it would be the Meyer Finkelstein. I'm also in the choir. The Meyer Finkelstein tune.
I don't know by composer, is that the Lador Vador or Lador Vador or a different one? Got it.
you just left us Christians in the dust. You realize that, right?
Well, I don't understand anything. I'm just a simple person.
I was teaching this course once at VST together with a Christian colleague. It was called like Christians and Jews, a shared theological journey or spiritual journey or something. And, at the seminary, we usually open every class with a prayer or a song or a devotional moment. And my Christian colleague read a psalm out loud one day, and he thought that this would be nice. And it was, I'm not good with the numbers of the Psalms, but Harvey, it was B'tzeit Yisrael. Yeah, exactly.
Yes, yes.
And the class was like 8 Christians, 8 Jews, and 8 other. So after he read this psalm, all of the Jewish students sang it in unison, spontaneously in a tune. And the reason why we all know it is it's part of the holiday liturgy and it's part of the Passover Seder. So we all knew it by heart. But the Christian students were left with the impression that all Jews know the entire book of Psalms by heart, set to melody.
Oh, they don't? They don't? Is this what I'm playing? Okay.
We have a
Jeff,
lot
to
to
your
learn.
question-
We Christians have a lot to learn.
Me too.
Jeff, to your question about is contemplative practice in Judaism also sort of a minority practice? The answer is yes. Of course, it depends on how you define contemplation. For example, it's a majority practice to set aside some time on Shabbat for a different kind of consciousness, or on the high holidays, the self-reflective time. It's completely mainstream to set aside some time for reflection in a different mode and look at yourself and the presence of God in a different way. But for the most part, it's not a majority practice. There's historical reasons for this about why Kabbalah goes up and down, reactions to current events, materials being lost, teachers being murdered in the Holocaust. So there's all different reasons why these contemplative traditions go up and down. But right now, it's not a majority tradition, but it's coming back into fashion.
I
Would you agree
had
with that,
More
Harvey?
is it better accepted now,
from
Rabbi Laura, than it was? Kabbalah?
I would say it's better accepted that it was, well, it's complex. If we want to say in North America, yes, in North America, it's definitely better accepted than it was. To put
okay.
it that way. Oh, but we won't just be in North America.
No,
So I guess
right.
you could generalize and say it's in a time of ascent.
Hmm.
You know, some of the movie stars got interested, like what's her name?
Madonna.
Madonna and the
Yeah,
red
Mm.
wine
one
and
of
the
them, yeah.
ribbon, and then they sort of popularized that in Madonna and so on. Okay, Jeff.
I would say, yeah, just one question to follow up and to sort of provide some linkage on that is I will, when I introduce both of you, I'll probably just do one line of, and both of our guest speakers are going to be introducing us to Kabbalah and complete the sentence of what you'd like me to say.
And some appreciation of mysticism as it is understood in a kind of prayerful modality.
Okay. Uh,
Is that okay, Laura?
Yeah, I think that's great. I just want to underscore that I was waiting to hear what you wanted to do before
Okay, we'll
I
get to that
decided.
next.
Yeah.
Okay, sure. We'll get to that
Yeah,
next.
you can get
Okay.
back with us.
Oh,
This
Laura,
Okay.
while
does
I've
not
got you,
have to be the
let me have
only.
your telephone number so you and I can talk, okay?
Yes, it's 778
778
231
231
1077.
1077. I'll give you mine.
Great.
713 818 5213.
Okay.
So we can-
713. Let me just make
818.
sure I wrote it down correctly. 713-818-5213.
Perfect.
Great, thanks.
Jan, did you finish your questions or not?
I'm sorry, you talking to me?
Did you
I haven't
finish
even
your
started
questions,
yet.
Jan, or not?
No, I haven't started yet. I was waiting for
Well,
Jeff
you
to
better
finish.
start. I'm just suggesting because
I can be here another 15, 20 minutes.
Well, Jeff actually, a lot of the questions that he asked, excuse me, gave me fodder for what I'm going to write. So the two questions that I have that Jeff didn't touch on, the one is, why did you agree to be a keynote speaker at this conference? What was your motivation to accept the invitation? I know you're on the board, Harvey. You probably didn't have a choice, but
Well,
I love to talk to people. I'd be on the elevator. I would start a conversation with somebody. I love to be with people and to
Okay.
teach and to learn in return. It's a give and take. It's
Okay.
It's like one of those words that spell both ways, like Natan, Nathan. So yeah, sure, absolutely.
Okay, so you love to teach and to
Teach and learn and to engage
learn and share.
and
Okay.
share and engage people. Sure.
Okay. How about you, Rabbi Laura?
well, I have the same answer. I learn something every time I prepare a presentation, and I learn something every time I see how a group of people interacts with that, engages with it, asks questions about it.
So interesting
teaching is
response.
learning.
Right. Yeah. Oh, for sure. Yeah. If you're a good teacher, it definitely is learning. And sometimes it's more learning than teaching. At least it's been my experience. So basically what I heard you just say is that preparing your presentation, maybe you don't learn anything so much as it reminds you some things. And then the feedback you get from your presentation is what entices you to accept these kinds of invitations, because you're going to meet a different group of people.
Growth producing. Yeah.
Well,
I'm sorry, Harvey.
I also learn while I am preparing, because it might be things I already know, or I might discover gaps in what I know. It's a different audience, a different context, a different mission. And in this case, I'm going to prepare together with Harvey. So I'm going to learn about what he knows, and maybe my own contribution will shine through in a different way because of what I learned as we prepare. So there's
Okay.
that too.
So it's enriching for you as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
And to comment on both of you, one of the things that makes my heart grow when I listen to people who are so much involved and appreciate the importance of interfaith work, whatever that work may be, whatever form it takes. I've been doing that all my life, not realizing in some cases that's exactly what I've been doing, until I got a little bit older and got a little bit perspective on it. But that's what we want to do with this conference. We want to remind people, or in some cases, inform people that we all do have a commonality. And we need to remember that. And that's where we need to work from, is whatever that commonality is. And if that's the only thing people walk away from this conference, then I think it'll be a success.
Sure.
That, the Jews and the Christians and the Muslims, we're all the same. Buddhists, whoever, we're all people. And it really makes all this darn frustration and long hours and tearing my little bit of hair out to hear what you all are going to talk about and why you're with us.
Okay.
Thank you for that. Appreciate it.
Okay.
And let's see, where was I? There was one other thing that I wanted to ask.
As you're looking it up and thinking, I'll just say, because Jeff mentioned the Interfaith Amigos, another reason why I was interested was because when Rabbi Ted retired, Jamal and Don reached out to me and said, do you want to join and be our Jewish
good.
person? Because
Oh,
I've been a fan of theirs for a very long time.
Yeah.
And Jamal said, oh, I gave your name to Bob Hess, and he's going to call you and talk about his conference, and I'll be there, and it'll be so great.
so are you a member of the Amigos now?
I am.
So you and Jamal are in that same group?
Yeah.
Thank you for that. I didn't know that.
Nice, nice.
Yeah, I'm also friends with Simi Ghazi, the other.
Oh, okay.
Common
So we're going to be
That's
talking with
great.
Simi
Okay.
tomorrow.
Great.
Yeah, yes, we will be. Yeah. Okay. Is there any one thing in particular that you would like our audience, our attendees, our partners in this production to learn about you from what you're going to tell them? Take something away. What would you like them to take away that they will associate because they heard or learn from because they heard it from you?
That's a hard question. You
Oh,
go
yeah,
first,
well-
Harvey.
Well, listen,
either personally or whatever, but yeah.
I would love people to know that we're all together, that there is one common deity that we all worship. I have been teaching, actually, I started teaching when I was 12 years old. I started teaching Hebraic cantillations when I was 12, and I started teaching bar mitzvah to others privately when I was 12. I've been doing all of this. Even in college, I was leading high holiday services and with a graduate from the seminary where one day I would read Torah and one day he would read Torah. One day I'd give the sermon, one day he'd give the sermon. My college job, I had 2 college jobs. One was leading Friday night services for a brand new synagogue that I named in Scottsdale, Arizona. And another job was writing the math book for the teacher who was a professor, the answer book. And so I've been working since I'm 12. And the idea of teaching and helping people, I wanted to become a rabbi early in life. In fact, I was also leading junior congregation. I learned Hebrew early. And they wanted to send me to a seminary before you went to high school. My folks, is like a majority of one. They said, you're going to go to regular high school first. And my folks wanted me to go into medicine. So I became a doctor. And then I love forensic work. So I've been helping people. I work with defense. We've saved a lot of lives. You referred to People magazine. That was a would-be serial killer that we completely turned around. He's now one of my good friends. He's on his medicine. We're even doing some other work. I won't get into it, but we've been contacted by Hollywood. One thing leads to another. I've done 2 History Channel shows. I like to do different things, but the idea of helping people, educating people. When I was invited to be part of the Holocaust Museum in Houston, and I became more of an expert on one of the artists there, Samuel Bach. Exciting. I'm on the board. I do things. Educating people is very important. And just thinking of it, for example, interfaith. I served with Ibn Sina in their work in clinic and getting volunteer experts in medicine, different fields of medicine, to volunteer, as I did for Ibn Sina, which is really Pakistan. They speak Urdu and so on. But we put these clinics together, and the common denominator was people needed help, and we're all one people. All of those things are very important. This trip to the Vatican will be my second trip to the Vatican. The first trip I was there at the invitation of Pope Benedict XVI, because I was presenting him with his artist's choice of the painting of then the world's most famous Holocaust artist, Alice Lokahana, and I said, I'll present it to you. I'll bring it to the Vatican. Your artist, Dr. Francesco Brunelli, head of billions of dollars of art, he will choose the one. It will be delivered free of charge to you. All I want in return is nothing material. I just want a promise from Pope Benedict XVI. Keep the message of Il Holocausto in Italian under the flag of Il Vaticano for every generation past our lives, because when Alice Kahana was a beautiful 16-year-old taken to Auschwitz, Pope Benedict XVI was in the Nazi Jugend. And so to bring them together in the 8th decade of life would make history, would be a beautiful comment on history. And he invited us. He sent me a message, please, let's do this. And so we delivered. It was estimated $550,000 painting, but it was delivered to the Vatican. We did this at the Apostolic Palace, and the Swiss Guard brought it down. We had 40,000 people down below in St. Peter's, and all. It was a beautiful ceremony. And that was wonderful. And now that's part of the Museum of the Vatican. First, he had it at the entrance of the Sistine Chapel for a few million people. And then he reframed it. He more than kept his word. He reframed it. And now it's in the Museum of the Vatican next to the greatest painters of the 20th century, Monet, Matisse, and so on. So this will be our second visit to the Vatican, which is very important because it means that we're relating to each other and we have something to say and something to share and something that we can learn from each other. And to me, this is so, so important. So I wanted to become a rabbi when I was a young kid. I eventually became a rabbi at the Jewish Spiritual Leadership Institute in New York. Somehow we made a connection. Then the guy says, well, he says, can you do this and this? Yes, I can do this. Do you know how to speak a little Hebrew? So you want to conduct the rest of the interview in Hebrew. Can you sing this? Yes, I've done that for years. And he said, I'll teach you myself. And so, and I was the students and so on. So, I mean, I had that background and I was one of the oldest students to get that kind of ordination. And I made the deal to myself, anything that I do rabbinic, as for example, if I help a family out or they want special blessings, or I did something for Cardinal DiNardo with someone who was dying and I participated in some of those rituals and he wanted the ancient priestly blessing, which I could give him and so on. All those we do as a donation back to the world, back to faith, back to helping people. We don't charge anything for those things. And so that's something that I love doing. I started teaching Sunday school when I was in high school, And I was acting rabbi when the rabbi of this synagogue left. And I'll tell you something interesting, because when I used to teach, and I was only a kid in high school teaching, so that's not too sharp a kind of a guy, Anyhow, so 50 years later, 2 people called me, 2 people that were in my class years and years and years ago. And one said, I still remember how you disciplined me. And so impressive that you could handle me that no one else could. I became a psychologist. And another guy became a rabbi who does interfaith work, and he's working to rebuild in Poland some of the communities that were lost in the Holocaust and so on. And so he called me as well, and he was also in that class going back 50 years. And so So I've been with all of this. And then as I became a child psychiatrist and a forensic psychiatrist and so on, my job was helping people, defense, helping save lives, and also in personal injury, where we can really turn lives around. So this has been a very exciting kind of career for me, because I celebrate. It's like I'm wired to celebrate when someone else has a victory or we save a life through some sort of talking to a jury for half a day or something. Mm-hmm. But these are all exciting things for me, and that's why I like the interfaith program. You're reaching out across and you're finding these commonalities and helping people. That's what it's all about, you know. I get very excited about these things.
Oh, we couldn't tell, Harvey. We didn't know you get excited.
I know I can't. I hide it. I hide it.
Yes. Oh, yes. You do a really good job. I'm gonna ask Laura, if you don't mind, Harvey, to top that one, Laura.
Well, actually, I was gonna ask Harvey, is the person who called you, who is doing the work with the Jewish communities in Poland, it's not Chaim Beliak, is it?
Yeah, Bernie.
So he was the rabbi at Hillel when I was briefly a Hillel program director.
Really? Yeah, Bernie. See, Bernie was in Beth Hebrew Congregation, 333 East Portland in Phoenix, Arizona. In fact, that's where Spielberg had his bar mitzvah, actually. And so, yeah, Bernie. I knew him as Bernie before he became Chaim. That's Bernie.
Well, I knew him as Dov before he became Chaim.
Okay,
so I think he tried on a series of names.
When we were kids, it was Bernie. Isn't that funny? It's a small world, right?
Oh, yeah. The older we get, the smaller it gets.
Yeah, it does. We're running
out of
time.
Yeah, that's true. How about you, Laura? Excuse me. What do you want people to know, to take away from having that opportunity to hear you and meet with you?
Well, that's so interesting. I don't usually think of it that way. I think of what I would like people to learn about themselves, right? Or what seeds might be planted for them to take home, especially when you have a presentation that is a mixture of cognitive and experiential.
Mm-hmm.
But maybe if they take away anything about me, it's just that I've been on a journey. I've learned many, many different things, and there is so much journey available and left to do, and so much more to learn. And hopefully in the 45 minutes of our presentation, people might say to themselves, here's a dimension I haven't experienced or thought about before.
I hear you saying you would like people to think and take something away that they can think about after the noise is over.
Yeah, but the thing might not be a cognitive thing.
No, I know. I get
Some
it. I understand
inner
what
movement or change of disposition.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. I like that word journey. I use that a lot. Journey or pilgrimage, depending on how I'm using it, because they're not exactly interchangeable. And I think more people need to recognize that we're all on our own, what I think of as our personal path, our personal journey. And if we can bring that together, even momentarily, that word that I have trouble with, Bob, that asymptotic word.
Asymptotic math.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for calling on me, because we have just a few minutes left. This has been wonderful, and it's clear that we're going to need another one of these, because the bonding is really what was important here, not what we needed to cover. And I thought it was beautiful. I just want to comment on a couple real quick things that is a takeaway. Laura, when you shared your mystical experience, you captured what the culmination of this conference is going to be. It's going to be in research on those mystical experiences and how they become service to others, Harvey. He knows, because he's working with us on the research on practicing these contemplative practices. and his research is on PTSD. We're going to be having that published, and the neuroscientific aspect of it. So it's ultimately not just to feel good, but to serve others. And the beauty of this is it is truly interfaith, and that's what's driving this. And we're on the cutting edge of this. This is where it's at. And ultimately, you're here not just to give that 45-minute presentation, but by the fact that you shared this, it shows that you're leading toward the end of the conference. And your other big role is going to be in panel discussions at the end of each day.
Right.
And interacting with the scientists. And the other thing that I'm asked, why did I want to get this done so early? The truth is, it was mainly to be sure we get enough registrants. And so I'm asking for you to be promoting these things on the websites you have access to. Did you get any links that you can give us now, or that you will give us in an email follow-up? Perhaps, I don't know what it would be, Vancouver School of Theology or Jewish Herald Voice, Harvey?
Yeah, I mentioned that before, yeah.
The Holocaust Museum, whatever.
Yeah, just email that information to Bob. Once we get the link, part of the program.
We need to work on it now, because I did give you, I sent you with these emails, some graphics and press release that Jan.
We'll get you, I'll get you, well, the Jewish Herald Voice I already gave you because Vicky, the Levin family owns a place and they know us. Yeah.
Okay, so you'll both of you will follow up with me afterwards.
I'll follow you up later. Yeah.
Wonderful.
Okay. Yeah.
One last thing, Harvey.
The other thing I was going to say, just talking about in normal prayer in Judaism, when you say your morning prayers, for example, that's a silent, quiet thing, the so-called Amida, the silent devotion. That really struck me when we first started talking about a long time ago. That's a meditative process that you're all alone, your head is someplace else, and you're into prayer. And we know scientifically, I don't want to give a lecture here, but we know that good meditation result in increased volumetrically of the hippocampus of the brain.
Mm-hmm.
So that people that are stressed with PTSD and other things, they shrink a little bit, the hippocampus. This successful meditative kinds of work actually help grow the hippocampus. And so in meditative work, in morning prayers, and you do this every day and so on, you are already into meditation just by virtue of the nature of your religious practice.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Harvey. I think one last thing I wanted to mention, Harvey was kind enough to read my book, which was kind of the basis of this flow that we're trying to capture in the conference, flowing from one subject to another, not because what I said in the book I expect you all to say, but that you get a sense of the flow. And Harvey read the book and gave me a wonderful review on Amazon. And what captured people, and a lot of people are taking from his review, was anybody of any faith can read this, even though it was about my journey. And so, Laura, if you don't know, Rabbi Laura, if you don't mind, a humble author asking you to read it, not because I'm smart, but because it gives you a flavor of what we're doing and where we're headed.
Yeah, I read a little bit of it before our first meeting, and I will read the rest of it.
Well, thank
It
you.
will give you a sense of what we're trying to accomplish with this conference. One last thing too, before, because I know you both have to go. I don't know if Bob's mentioned this or not, but we're planning a cocktail party. The first, I guess it's basically the first night after or before, whatever. Anyway, on the roof of the Palo 6 Hotel, which is where the speakers are going to be staying. And it's just for the speakers and if their spouse comes or whatever, to get to just have a little bit of camaraderie and glass of wine, scotch, water,
If
whatever.
you've never been there before, you sit on the terrace and you're at the 7 o'clock position of St. Peter's Square, right outside the square. And you can toast with a scotch or whatever your thing is. And you can look over the wall of the St. Peter's Square and see the Vatican lit up, the St. Peter's Basilica lit up. And it's pretty amazing. And that puts us right next door to the venue where you
Right.
Good.
And that's where y'all are
I'll
going to
send
be.
out the invitations and the hotel information shortly. Thank you.
Just
Great.
wanted to
And-
tell you that this is not all going to, we want to have fun with this. Yes, what we're talking about is obviously serious stuff, but there should be a joy in the practice of whatever our faith tradition is, however we honor our deity. There should be joy there. And I want that to come through with everything that we're doing during this conference. Yes,
Yeah.
it's serious stuff, but I think we can show that.
Yeah, and Laura, I know that you're under a time constraint.
Yeah,
so
we gotta go.
I wanna honor that. But when you go through the book, also look at the discussion topics on the website, because those might come up and they may not be part of your talk, but you may want to look at them, decide, well, is this worth commenting on if it comes up? That's all I had to say.
And so the panel discussion at the end of the day will be an opportunity for addressing those kinds of
Exactly.
issues.
Yeah.
Perfect.
If I can just insert one quick item, and I know you've heard just one last thing, but this is my last, and I promise that. Rabbi Laura, you are going to be part of a panel discussion on Wednesday, and that'll be from 4 to 4:45. The two preceding sections will be discussing physics to creation and then chemistry to life. And so we'll have the people, the scientists that are part of that together with you and a couple of others. And it's whatever you think is appropriate. And Rabbi Harvey, you'll be part of the panel discussion on Thursday, and that'll be following the biology to consciousness and then the consciousness and free will, religion and health research. And if I may, I'll just reach out to both of you just to confirm a few things and then sort of to come up with a rough draft of an introduction and make sure that that's, comfortable, congenial to both of you. But this has just been a joy to participate.
Oh, it's been, yeah, it has
Thank you
been.
both
Yes.
so much for your
Nice,
time.
nice.
Yes.
And Laura, get a
Yeah.
chance to meet you. And yes. And Jeff, I love your voice.
Isn't it gorgeous? Yes, I know. I could listen to him read the phone book,
That's
yeah.
just a voice.
I don't know about that. Yeah.
It's a carrier wave. It just
Yeah, yeah.
Well, thank you.
yes.
Actually, the reason we have Jeff is because of Jamal. That's how
Right.
Bob and Jeff met, is through Jamal. It's kind of in a way, it's a little incestuous how this all came about.
Actually, I met Jeff at a conference at Notre Dame, St. Mary's. So,
Yeah. So yeah, it's the reason, in case you're curious, the reason we are making sure there's a member of the clergy on those panel discussions is that we don't want our scientists look dumb because they can't respond to a faith-related inquiry. And obviously we don't want any of our clergy like, oops, I don't understand the science part of it. So you're kind of there to support each other and make us all look smart and good. You all have a beautiful Monday, and thank you so much for your time.
Thank you
Thank you
much.
so much. This was
Thank you,
great.
Rob.
I really appreciate
Nice
it.
to meet you all. Bye-bye now.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye now.
Bye-bye.